Hey friends, welcome to Women on the Pause. Today I'm with Jenn and Joyce, and we are going to talk about confidence in our leadership and how we've journeyed through building confidence, what it looks like to feel not confident. We will probably touch upon imposter syndrome and just a whole host of other topics that we have worked through as leaders in different spaces of our lives. And so we're looking forward to having you join us for this episode. And so pull up your favorite drink and listen in. All right, friends, it's good to be together again.
I'm so glad we get to do this together.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about confidence today. I think we've had some side conversations about some of our struggles with confidence in certain spaces. And some of the other times when we felt super confident in the gifts that God has given us, and our callings, etc. So what have you get us started? Like, tell
Yeah,
us a little bit about your journey with confidence and leadership.
I can start. I feel like I was not born with confidence. I think there's some people who are just like born more confident naturally, and that was not me. And I think with many of us that our parents are immigrants and we like struggle with kind of fitting in because we speak a different language at home, eat
Hmm.
different food, and then we go to school. And I think that played into some of my lack of confidence. So I feel like it's been a long journey of like um, in all of these different areas from my racial identity, like different parts of my identity as a woman
Mm.
minister, my ability to preach and teach, my confidence in just yeah, like that I have a voice. I
Mm.
think it's a lot of different areas that I feel like have just me like it's taken time to grow in them. And I think it's stepping out even when I don't feel like I um, have all of the skills. Because if I wait for that, I would just
Mm.
never do it. So it's
Hmm.
stepping out even when I'm afraid and don't feel fully equipped yet and still doing it. And then having God meet me in that moment and I'm able to do it, that gives me a little bit more confidence. And then I do it again and then again. And so that's been the
Mm.
process for me of growing in confidence that I think has been like trusting God, like praying, stepping out in faith, God meeting me,
Mm.
growing in confidence, and then repeat, you know?
I
Yeah.
love that. I love that it's a like an iterative learning journey for you.
Yeah.
But then there's like a meeting with God in each
Mm.
one of those moments where
Mm-hmm.
God grows you more into who you were meant to be, and then you become more
Mm-hmm.
confident
Yeah.
in God. And I love that cycle. I think that's a real cycle for many of us.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, what about you, Jen? I'm curious to learn, like, how have you
Mm.
come into your confidence?
I think in our last episode we talked about our changing body, and I think and our aging, and that kind of alters every season. It can shift our confidence level. Um, I think, have you ever walked into a room and wondered, what am I doing here?
Hmm.
you know, and that can be like oh my gosh, I get to be here. This amazing. Or what am I doing here? If they really saw who I am or knew who I was, I wouldn't belong, or whatever it is that we might say to ourselves. And I think what I heard you say, Joyce, is just this reflective piece of like, reflecting over situations and what is it that I was struggling with, or what were some of my thoughts? God, what do you think? And I think going back to that question of, God, what do you think of me, has been something I've done over the years that's been really helpful, because I think I don't think accurately about myself. I think often we're just so critical, way more harsh of, the way we speak to ourselves is not always kind. But I think going back to, God, what do you think? And even more than what I need others to say about me, because whether you say I'm great or I'm not great, that can't be the final word over who I am. And so I think that that has been a growing journey, Yulee. I'd say I don't struggle with maybe the degree of insecurities that I did earlier, but it doesn't mean that it just doesn't hit me from time to time and
Yeah.
surprise me that I'm still a girl, you know. And at times my younger version of myself shows up and yeah, she's a little bit wobbly at times.
Yeah, I feel like what you're talking about, both of you, is related to that phrase imposter syndrome
Yeah.
Mm,
that we hear all the time. But
yeah,
I sometimes wonder if people actually know what that means,
yeah.
and where it comes from and things like that. And so if you do a little bit of research on imposter syndrome, um, I think the
Mm-hmm.
percentages are like 25 to 30-ish% um, of high achievers experience
Yeah.
imposter syndrome. And also, 70% of people experience imposter syndrome at least once um,
Mm,
in their lives. And so it's not a clinical diagnosis, it's just
mm-hmm.
like a thing out there. And
Mm-hmm.
the
Mm-hmm.
people who struggle with imposter syndrome, based on what I've researched, if I remember correctly,
Mm-hmm.
is that it is related to high achievers, or it can
Mm-hmm.
be
Yes.
people who are
Yeah.
perfectionistic, and who aim for
Mm-hmm.
perfection, and people who lack self-compassion when they fail. So they're
Mm,
more critical on themselves when they experience a failure. And so there's also personality driven nuances
mm-hmm.
that are related to imposter syndrome. And I mention all of this because I remember a conversation that we had on our recent vacation together where I think I said, like, I don't struggle with imposter syndrome. Like, I don't really know what that is. When I researched it, I was like, oh, no wonder, because I am not a perfectionist, which I've mentioned many times in our Quora Collective.
Mm,
Um, what I love experimenting and
mm,
learning, but that requires a lot of failure.
mm-hmm.
And so I think failure to me is just a part of life, and I
Yeah.
don't think it's a bad thing. I think repeated failure, repeated mistakes over and over, like you don't
Mm,
learn from them. That's a whole other issue that I think needs tending to, but that's not the type of failure
mm-hmm.
I'm talking about. And then yeah, personality wise, I think I mentioned, like, I was raised primarily by my grandfather during the tender younger years,
Mm-hmm.
from birth to three. And also throughout all my teenage years, my grandfather was like a strong figure who really like affirmed a lot of
Mm,
things that he saw in me that he thought was good. And he would always say, "You are loved." um,
mm,
you are great. You are so smart. He would just affirm all of these things over and
yeah.
over. And so I think a combination of all of those things contributed to my lack of
Mm,
struggle with imposter syndrome. And
mm,
so, yeah, and it's not necessarily perfect though. Like you said, Jen, there
yeah.
are certain rooms when I enter in, like if it's like a predominantly white space
Yeah.
and I'm the only Asian American woman
Yeah, for
or something
sure.
like that, then I'm like, oh, I feel a little bit off.
Yeah.
Like,
And
Yeah.
how do
I'm
I?
just like, you go, girl. Like, I'm so glad God is opening up places for you to go and be like there in those rooms, you know? I remember that conversation, Yulee, in California, where you said, oh, I don't think I experienced this. And I was shocked because I experienced it a lot, Yulee. But you're
Mm,
just saying that was very eye opening for me because I am perfectionistic and I
mm,
have struggled like with just being more self critical and like lack of self compassion. So all of those
mm,
things are things that I experience. So no wonder I experience more imposter syndrome, high
mm-hmm.
achieving, all that stuff. So I do like looking back. I've grown in this area, and I think, and one of the things that I in my middle age, in my growth has just been speaking to myself with more self-compassion. I
Mm,
do think that has been a huge growth area for me, and
mm,
I think it's linked to what you said earlier, Jed, of like, how does God see me? Like, how I perceive myself. I am not objective. I know I'm more critical on myself. So how can I get out of
mm,
my own head is like asking that question, God, how do you see me?
mm,
And
mm.
then to be able to embrace there are gifts that God has given every single one of us, as his children, and just natural gifts, spiritual gifts. And being
Mhm.
able to like um, say thank you to God, like not take the gifts for
Mm.
granted, but have an attitude, not of like I'm so great, like in an arrogant way, but like, oh, I can receive the words that God has given to me about who I am,
Mhm.
the gifts God has given me, receive them. And what I'm so impressed by you, Yulee, is you received those words that your grandfather said to you. Like you receive them as true. And for
Mm.
it's like who are the voices we're going to listen to? Um,
Yeah.
and they're going to be lies that people say to us that are not true or from our own selves. Like not to
Mm.
listen to those and instead listen to the true voices from trusted people and from God. I think that's how I've grown in self compassion. I think is
Mm.
from like to hear the truth from those sources and then to speak to myself in a more kind and loving way.
Mm. It's good. I think I'm struck listening to both of you that confidence presents itself in different ways in each of our lives. A confident woman isn't needing to wield her sword and be the loudest in the room and always need to clamor for attention. There's a quiet confidence I think that we all carry and we need to cultivate that is okay if you hear me or you don't, but I know who I am. And I think perhaps where imposter syndrome shows up is in that gap between knowing our identity and our calling, the way we speak to ourselves. And so we know to be true, the truth is that we are loved and we belong. And someone can't take that away from me. It's who God, it's identity God has spoken over my life, and he's given me gifts. But then there's this gap, I think, in what we think about ourselves. So I think that the nurturing and cultivating of a deeper confidence, that's work that we can all do, right? If you're listening to this and you're wondering, how do I grow in confidence? I think it's, if you're a woman of faith, I think asking God to help you. That it's in my confidence isn't in my abilities, although God has given me abilities, right? And those help us grow, but that isn't the thing I hang everything on. So whether walking to a room with that's maybe predominantly men and maybe all white men and you're the only Asian and the only Asian woman, like the only woman. And so it's double feature and you're like, okay, how do I walk in? And I'm okay. Sometimes it's a lot to muster up to use my voice and it takes a lot of courage, but I think that's different than confidence.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
think but I think it goes back to knowing who we are. And
Hmm.
that certainly, I think that's one of the gifts that age can give us is that greater freedom, knowing who I am deeply.
That's good. I totally agree. I think that what you said, knowing who we are in Jesus, I think is literally the key.
Yeah,
Um,
that's right.
because we have to know God created us on purpose,
Mm,
with a great design for our lives. Like God's timing for whenever we walk into a room is perfect.
yes.
Um, you know, the way that God has gifted you is exactly how you need to be gifted and exactly what you
Mm,
need to contribute. And the
mm,
voice that God has given you is the voice that is needed. Um,
Mm.
any space that you have been invited into, and I think it's important to say, like that is a different kind of confidence, like you said, Jen, that rootedness
Mhm.
in Jesus, because
Mhm.
we can be fooled by confidence. And
Yeah.
I want to tell our listeners, like, we we can't be fooled and think that confidence, when we see confidence or how the world defines confidence, that that is the same thing as character. And I think
Yeah.
a lot of times we equate the two. Like when we see,
Mm.
quote unquote, somebody confident, like on stage, worldly definition we have of confidence. Like it could be like
Mm.
confidence is speaking powerfully on a stage.
Mm.
Well, that's we need to be careful and not equate that with that person's character.
Yeah.
And also really wonder too. Like just be it's not a sin to wonder and be curious. And ask questions,
Mm.
Is that real confidence that is rooted in Jesus? Or is that somebody that is just needing to give a talk for this day?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Different ways of seeing people and interpreting confidence has consequences. It
Yeah.
determines like how we interact with that person, like, how we view that person, or, if we want to invite that person in closer into our own lives or into our own platforms. Naming that people do equate worldly confidence with character so
Yeah.
often. And it's disturbing. And
Yeah.
um, yeah, I hope that we can um, help sort of disconnect those two things from each
Yes. That's so good, Yulee. I think one of the traits that I really admire in leaders is humility.
Mm.
Because once people get to a certain um,
Yeah.
stage in their life of influence, they can have all of those outward things. They've learned to be really
Mm.
great outward speakers, or
Mm.
if they have natural gifts in those areas and charisma.
Mm.
But how do you stay humble? So we want to
Yeah.
grow confidence in the Lord, and we also want to be really humble and being able to keep hearing and listening to other viewpoints, and in areas where we need to grow. Um, so I think confidence in the Lord and also humility
Mm.
are.
That's so good.
I think the people that as they've grown older but stayed humble, like there's like something about that where you're just like, it's rare, it's a treasure.
Yeah. It's been said that humility isn't thinking less of ourselves, but it's about thinking about ourselves less.
Yes.
So
Yes.
there's something about not diminishing and not, when someone is walking in the room and they're like, oh, I don't belong and I'm unworthy, or no, that wasn't great. It's still really self referenced when I do that. It's still very much about me. But I walk in and, it's like I tripped and fell. And it's like, it's very humbling to trip and fall at 54. And just to be able to laugh at myself and just go,
Yeah.
okay, I'm a little disheveled showing up for church, but it's okay. I've got band-aids on. It's not about then spiraling and thinking, oh, you're so clumsy, blah, blah, blah. It's just like, it is. And I'm just going to meet the next moment with grace, with laughter, and I can
Yes.
pick myself up. And I wonder if that's maybe a metaphor for our lives. We're gonna trip and fall, and
It's
there's gonna be
inevitable. We're
moments,
human. Like
right?
that's going to happen. It does keep us humble.
It
Like
does.
we just pick ourselves up again. And
We
I love
do.
that you laughed at yourself too, because it gives other people freedom
Yeah.
to not take ourselves too seriously.
Mm,
We are all going to make mistakes. We're all going to fall, and it's okay. Like we can have grace and we can speak to each other and one another with kindness, and we um, And I think the other piece of it that I just wanted to say is I admire both of your leadership so much. And one of the things that I really appreciate about our friendship is that we cheer each other on so much. Like, so
Mm.
it's like when we're secure and confident in who God has called us to be,
Yeah.
we can then build one another up and really be for one another. And I think it helps others grow in confidence because we need to hear from the Lord, obviously, of
Yes.
who He says we are, but we do need to hear that from one
Yes, we do.
another, and not in a just like flattering kind of, but like speaking the truth. Like these are your gifts. Like I'm so proud of you. Um,
Mm.
I'm so proud of you, Yulee, for all the spaces you step into where you're like the only one Asian woman, and you too, Jen, and like showing up,
Mm.
like and speaking up, and all of those things. Like I love being able to like be the recipient of that and being a blessing like that to others.
Mm, yeah, that's good. That's so important to underscore. Yeah, I think
Mm-hmm.
what you said, Joyce, of when we find that true confidence and security in Jesus, then we can uplift others
Yeah,
so well. I do think those go hand in hand.
they do.
Yeah, because when I experience a tearing down, which when you run in leadership, you experience tearing down often, so you tend
Mm-hmm.
to become resilient to it as well.
Mm.
um, as we've aged, like hopefully we age in wisdom, and you can
Mm.
also tell as you age, like, oh, okay, this person has so much security
Mm.
in the Lord that they are the most encouraging person. They see you so well.
Mm.
They don't people please. They're just they don't have any need for any of that anymore.
Yeah, yeah,
And it's sad, like you said, Joyce, because I don't meet a lot
mm.
of women like that
Yeah,
also. So I feel like
yeah.
we as women, we have work to do.
We do.
Yeah, we need to
We
keep
do.
modeling it,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
I think we need to be women supporting women and speaking these words of life and confidence in one another.
Mm.
There's it's the abundance mindset. It's like there's more for, even though it's like more for one person, it's like that doesn't mean there's less for me. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's not a
Mm-hmm.
competition in that way. Like God is such an
Yeah.
abundant God, and so just having that mindset.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, as we wrap up this episode, I want to ask the question that we are going to be asking ourselves at the end of every episode, and that is, what are you releasing today?
Mm.
And what are you embracing? And so, Joyce, I'd love to
Mm.
put that question to you.
As I sort of mentioned earlier, I think releasing just my loud inner critic voice,
Mm.
and I want to embrace, like it's hard for me to sometimes to receive blessing, like receive those words when people do speak words of encouragement to me, to actually like really receive it, and I as there's this Asian thing we do sometimes. It's like you push that away. It's sort of this false
Mm-hmm.
humility thing of like, no, 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 like you're being too kind or whatever. But just to be able to receive those words is a growth area for me. So I want to embrace.
Mm.
Love it.
So good.
Yeah, well, we're so grateful that you've joined us today. Thank you for listening in. We hope that we can become your newfound friends, girlfriends, and community, and that our conversation was uplifting to you as a fellow female leader in the spaces that you're in. So we'll see you next time, everybody. Bye bye.
Bye. Thanks
Bye.
for joining.